Morning Show, Rickey Smiley Morning Show, 8 minutes after the hour, y'all. Hey, 2023 marks the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, and our next guest, he is a rap historian, DJ, radio personality, and podcast host. Y'all, welcome to the Rickey Smiley Morning Show, VP of Programming for Radio 1 and Reach Media, the legendary Colby Colb Tyner. Hey, Colby, good morning, man.
Man, I need to give you $5 for that intro, bro.
Come on, bro. You know we got to roll you out, man. The 50 years of hip-hop, this is a big deal. Right, Brad?
That's right. So most of the magic of hip-hop is behind the scenes. And as a young man, Colby, you began your career at the radio station in Philly. Can you tell us how it all got started?
Yeah, I mean, I was just listening to the radio like all of us was doing when we were younger. And the moment when I graduated high school and I started college, I went to Temple University in Philly. I got an internship at the radio station working under the legendary Lady B, who was one of the pioneers of hip-hop, one of the pioneers of hip-hop radio. And I just sat with her on her number one show in Philly and just kind of sat behind the scenes. And then when she eventually left, maybe like 5 years later, I took over that slot. So it was just an honor at 21 to get that opportunity. And that's when hip-hop was really starting to explode. And you had your Nas, Tribe Called Quest, Wu-Tang, Biggie, all of that was happening. And I had a radio show at that time. So I met all these guys early in their career, including you, Brett. I met you early in your career. So, like, you know, those memories are just awesome.
Man, Cole, you mentioned Biggie Smalls, so you had the opportunity to interview him, Jay-Z, just to name a couple. What is one of your most memorable interviews and why?
That's a great question, Rock. And I would say Jay-Z is probably the most memorable because I interviewed him about 5 times, his first 5 albums. But I interviewed him before he was anybody. And on the first ever Backstory podcast, I played an interview with him about a year before Reasonable Doubt came out when he was just formulating what Rockefeller was going to be. And he was on an independent label. You know, it was just a moment. And then before that, I would say, you know, Wu-Tang before they blew up and just how they almost got me fired because they showed up in a van hungry on a Friday night. 13 of them comes into the station and they tear through the radio station. But I had an epic interview with them, and that was just like the beginning of something great.
Wow. All right, so we're talking to the Senior Vice President of Programming for Radio 1 and Reach Media, Colby Tyner. So now, Colby, you have a podcast called The Backstory with Colby Colb. So can you tell us how it started and where it's going?
Well, the podcast was really 10 years ago. I found all of these cassettes of when I was on the radio back in the day and all these interviews. And so I took them and I made them digital, and I was sitting on this content and I figured I need to share this. Like, what was Nas like before Illmatic? What was Run DMC like 10 years into the game? What was, you know, Jay-Z like when he left being an artist and became the president of Def Jam? I had all this historical audio, and so I decided to create a podcast that would live forever way beyond me, that people could actually do history on it. And then I do regular interviews. So like today, for instance, I dropped an interview with Kid and Play where we talk about House Party and how Play didn't want to do House Party. He didn't think that was a good idea, and he was forced into doing it. So like learning little nuggets of information about some of our hip hop legends, and that's kind of what I do. And next week I got Big Daddy Kane, which is like one of my God list of people I want to interview on the podcast. But I love having it because now I can recirculate old interviews, but I also can do new interviews with people and really share information about their journey in the music business.
Hip hop is evolving for decades. You know, radio has played a very important role in breaking records for artists, creating megastars. You know, social media has kind of changed the game. So do you think the future of hip-hop is bright? And then, Colby, let us know how we can listen to your podcast and how can you be reached?
Well, the first thing I do is I listen to the Rickey Smiley podcast. Then I listen to my podcast on the Urban One Podcast Network. Let's get that straight, okay?
Yes, no, man, thank you, bro.
The Backstory podcast is available wherever you get your podcast, Backstory with Colby Colb. But I think hip-hop is in good shape, man. Listen, it's an art form that was created by our people that got our young people out of the streets and into studios and out of trouble. And many, many people became multimillionaires, and legacies have been created because of hip-hop. I think we are going to be in great shape.
Thank you, Colby, for coming on, man, giving us all of those important nuggets, man. Y'all give it up and show your love right now for the one and only Colby Colb Tyner.